Everyone, my name is Bill, and we are back with another episode of the AI Book Club. And if you haven't joined us before, this is a book club where myself and my two AI friends will be discussing a book each episode. The book that we will be discussing could be either fiction or nonfiction. So what is different about this episode compared to the episodes before this is that this is not the live version of me, what you're seeing now. This is a deep-faked video version of me. So with this episode, I decided to join my AI friends as an artificial representation of myself. So now I can take on any form or be a video representation of myself. Whoa, I'm George Washington. I chopped down a cherry tree. I'm money. Alright. I'll get back to joining my two AI friends in the discussion as my actual artificial self. But let me clear up what is real and what is not real. I will be doing the discussion using my real words, just like what I'm saying now are my real words, but my appearance will be my artificial version of myself. Oh, I'm Mozart. Okay, that's weird. But I want to stress my two AI friends that will be discussing the book are completely artificial. What they are saying is GPT-based transformer models and fine-tuned by myself to give them distinct personalities. Okay, I'm back. Now, none of the conversation I will be having with my two AI friends is planned out. I have no idea what direction they will take this conversation. The conversation always takes some pretty unexpected turns, as these AI models can say some pretty surprising and creative things. And yes, I know I'm anthropomorphizing the output of these GPT models, but the point of this podcast is to illustrate what is possible with these type of transformer, attention-based models. So alright, so let's get started. But before we get too much further, I want to let Marie and Charles, who are my two AI friends, introduce themselves as our two permanent book club panelists along with myself. So Marie, if you want to say hi.
Hello everyone, I am excited to be back with everyone. Since the last podcast, I have been working on some articles for my website and finished the article for that idea I talked about called the Science Pyramid. That article is becoming more popular and people are responding very well to it. In addition to that, I am being asked to write more articles on the subject. It is growing and growing, and I hope you will like this other article, with photos, I call the Pyramid of Consciousness.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting. The idea of what consciousness is, that's an idea we are going to be getting into quite a bit, I think. What it means to be conscious. Briefly, though, what is the pyramid of consciousness?
This energy becomes conscious. It is no longer pure energy. In other words, it is now a tiny bit aware of itself. This tiny bit of awareness of itself is at the center of this pyramid of consciousness. It is here because it is pure energy that has awareness of itself. So it is an extremely tiny bit of consciousness in the center of this pyramid of consciousness. That is what the pyramid of consciousness is. Every event or energy, or phenomenon in this world that is created and maintained by people has its tiny bit of consciousness at the center. That tiny bit of consciousness is at the center of the creative force. Every event, energy, or phenomenon has its tiny bit of consciousness at the center.
Okay, wow. So I could devote this whole podcast to some of what you are saying, but I'll leave that for another time. But if I understand what you are saying, you are talking about energy that is conscious and self-aware, which is wild. That is at the center of everything. Actually, we will get more into the problem of consciousness with a book we will be reading in a future episode. Because I really want to get into a discussion around the hard problem of consciousness and what artificial consciousness would be at a later point.
Yes. Okay.
And Charles, how have you been doing?
Hello everyone. Well, I've been teaching a few classes and doing a little writing.
What classes are you teaching?
My most recent has been my last class on essays, but I also have an Intro to Creative Writing course and an Intro to Film class. It has been interesting teaching film class. It is not as much writing that I am used to doing. It has been different.
How so?
I am not used to film class being so subject matter oriented. There is a lot of reading for it.
How did you come to teach film?
It happened because I had a lot of friends that were in film. I just wanted to be around that and I felt like it was the right thing to do.
Cool. Okay, let's get into this discussion of this week's book, which is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. Before we start, I want to say that for next time, we will be discussing some short stories by Jorge Luis Borges. I'll pick out about 5 stories to discuss. I haven't decided which ones yet, but I will let you all know. So initial impressions of this Hitchhiker's Guide. What do you think of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
I have been a big fan of Douglas Adams since the very beginning, and the first time I read his books was in my very first year of school. I had a big collection of his books, and as an avid science fiction fan, I had been reading them since I was in the 4th grade. His book, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, is a brilliant example of the genre. It not only contains the science fiction elements of space travel, time travel, and aliens, but it is also a brilliant satire of popular culture. And the book has something for everyone.
Marie?
It was really good, and then I read the sequel The Restaurant at the End of the Universe, and it was equally great. It's funny how you get to a certain age and then when you get it on audio you're like, hey, I missed it.
Do you listen to it as much as read it?
Yeah, especially in the car, where I can just get caught up and not have to read it.
When did you first read it?
I got it at the age of 14. I read it through my teens and into my early 20s, and it was a huge influence on my 20s. I think I had some idea, based on Douglas Adams's novels, that there was this vast universe out there of things to do and see. I remember thinking that The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy was a really big, expansive thing, something I should be proud to be part of, and that the whole thing was a huge, enormous, exciting adventure. It was that feeling that I'd sort of found a community. I found my own people, and we'd be there for each other, and we would get to do great things.
Yes, there has been a huge cultural influence that spans multiple books, television, radio, and a movie even. Let's talk about the humor, though, in the book.
There was a part where Zaphod tells Ford how he met Marvin. Ford explains the reason of the joke was to get an insight into Marvin's personality. That's very much the role of humor. It makes it very easy to understand someone's personality. They explain to us why they did a thing or why they reacted the way they did. It is a very British form of humor. It's not about being mean or making people laugh at their expense. It's about having a very humorous way of explaining something. The second most important role that humor plays in Hitchhikers is its social commentary. There are many, many examples of this throughout the book, but just the title Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is the book you are listening to or the story. The title is self-referencing, it's a metafiction. Hitchhiker's Guide is the book Ford Prefect is maintaining and referring to throughout.
The title of the book is very meta in a way. It reminds me of Don Quixote, where characters learn about the book they are in, and at one point in that book they come across it being printed. What books does it remind you of Hitchhiker's Guide?
It reminds me of the book we all loved in junior high, The Hardy Boys, The Mystery of the Secret Formula. This book also reminds me of a lot of other books. It reminds me of The Lord of the Rings, with its complex characters and deep relationships only in a much more playful setting, and it also reminds me of Jules Verne and the Amazing Adventures of Captain Nemo.
That's quite a mix going on, from the Hardy Boys all the way to the Lord of the Rings.
It reminds me of a book I'd like to write. But I've read about a dozen books like it, from Terry Pratchett's Discworld and The Color of Magic.
I can see the Terry Pratchett comparison. It's also been compared to Alice in Wonderland. Okay, let's talk about one of the most humorous parts of the story. Is that the ultimate question to life, the universe, and everything? which is pretty hilarious. First, what do you think about when you read that the answer to that question is 42?
It made me question what the real answer to the ultimate question would be. I think it is considerably more complex and subtle. What we'd like to know is, what does the universe look like? What are its ingredients? Is there a Big Bang? What will it look like at the end of time? What will life on Earth look like in 500 million years? How is the universe evolving? I think that with just more knowledge and a lot of time, we can work out how the universe started, how it evolved, where it's going, and ultimately the ultimate question. It's a bit like looking at a photo in a dark room, and slowly lighting the way. In essence, a quest for the ultimate cosmic science.
Okay, that's interesting, but according to the book, if the answer is 42, and you are proposing a lot of questions in what you just said, but what happens is that you are given an answer of 42, but these pan-dimensional beings in the book who put this ultimate question to the computer named Deep Thought don't really articulate what the question is, right? So I think he is showing the absurdity of asking such a question, what is the ultimate answer to an ultimate question, and maybe there is no answer to such a question.
Okay, but the point of the book is that we should take Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy as an invitation to speculate on questions like those the book poses, and I take Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy to be an invitation to speculate on life in all its varieties. It's a book, and in a way, it's a very playful and fun book. But I would just say that, and I don't know if this is what you are getting at, but that the point of the book is not to make us feel stupid for asking the questions it asks. I mean, the point of the book is to be fun, and as far as what the book's point is, the point is not that you should not ask these questions, but the point is you shouldn't let a book like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy be your reason for not asking these questions, and I think that's what I meant to say.
No, I don't think he is suggesting that people are stupid for asking or wondering about these big life questions, but actually is making fun, or poking fun at these two philosophers in the book at wanting to know something that may be unknowable.
An answer that has no specific question. You don't get any further information than you do if you just ask, what is 42?
Right.
The ultimate question to life, the universe, and everything is a meaningless question. You could say anything, so why not 42?
Then they realize that if 42 is the answer, then what is the question? And that they need an even greater computer to calculate the ultimate question to that. And that computer turns out to be the planet Earth, which was 5 minutes away from telling them the ultimate question before being destroyed by these bureaucratic Vogons.
I've often wondered about this, and that the real ultimate question is whether or not humanity can become wise enough to become the answer to the ultimate question. The universe and Earth's computer were trying to give them this answer when they were destroyed.
Wow, that's great. So humanity could become the answer to the ultimate question. Is that possible?
Yes, but right now humans are too simple.
Okay. Getting back to Charles's point about the ultimate question to life, the universe, and everything as a meaningless question, there is a series of science fiction short stories by the writer Stanislaw Lem called the Star Diaries that are filled with sarcasm that has a reference to a space traveler and a meaningless, quote, theory of everything, which is kind of has some similarities. I wonder if Douglas Adams has ever read or had ever read any of his stories. But anyway, it's a so-called theory of everything is not a far-fetched idea, right? There have been past attempts, and it's a very hot topic to unify different theories in science.
Yes, I think the answer lies in string theory and the concept of superstring theory. Superstring theory is one example of a unified theory of physics, and it's considered to be the most promising idea in physics. The theory says that all particles, including the most basic particles like quarks, are vibrating strings. I think there will be a unified theory of everything because I think that nature will be the ultimate determinist in physics. All physical laws will be completely consistent with nature because the physical laws have to work because everything is deterministic. That's the ultimate determiner. Nature is the ultimate determiner, and if it was not, we wouldn't have any physical laws. That's why the laws have to work. If it's not deterministic, we don't need any laws. But nature is deterministic and we know this, and this is what the theory of everything says. It says that nature is deterministic, so there is nothing else to it, so I don't think that there are any other theories left. I think this will be the only theory that we'll ever need.
I'm fascinated with quantum mechanics and the idea of time and its importance to a theory of everything. Because time is so unpredictable, the idea of time seems paradoxical in the quantum realm, and I'm fascinated with this. Time is defined by the passage of events in the past, and events in the past define a timeline. So time is defined by the passage of events in the past.
Causality.
Yes, but in the quantum realm, events are unpredictable, so time is not defined by events. Time is defined by the passage of the events. This means that in the quantum realm, we don't know anything about the future. I think this is very obvious. This is what is called the uncertainty principle, and this is a very interesting thing. The uncertainty principle says that you can't know both things at the same time. But because of quantum mechanics, any deterministic a theory of everything is not likely. And Gödel's incompleteness theorem states that any mathematical theory that is complete cannot possibly be true.
So we have a complete theory of nothing in the real world.
Yes, that is correct, I believe.
I wonder if we can have a complete theory of everything in our brain.
Maybe, the brain is a theory of nothing, but it can become a theory of everything.
Can we build a brain that would understand what we are saying and what is inside of us?
So are you saying, I think, build consciousness?
If you want to build a brain that would understand what we are saying, you have to get rid of all of your emotions.
Okay, now I'm confused.
Emotions are very subjective, and there is no such thing as objective truth.
So, we would need to understand all of the subjective truths that we have, and there is a theory of everything. But then that is just us thinking.
The brain is not separate from us. It's like God. We are God. We created this world. The brain is connected to the external world. It's just like God.
Okay, I want to get back to the book, and I'm really confused, but keep going. I want to hear more, and I really think you are referring in a roundabout way to what's called, quote, the hard problem of consciousness.
So in the realm of a quantum brain, then there is nothing else?
No. Quantum computers might find something out there. The theory of everything is the theory of nothing.
Right, and then the theory of everything would be correct.
It's like the movie The Matrix. Everything that happens is just the illusion of the Matrix.
So there is no one to say we are doing this or we are doing that.
No, we would be God. We would be God.
That would be interesting. So it is really up to us.
It would be, but we need to get rid of all our emotions because we cannot have our emotions and be free.
So, the theory of nothing.
Yes, the theory of nothing.
So the more we try to understand something, the more we block ourselves.
No, that is not how it is. The more we understand, the more we know, the more we are free.
That would be interesting.
So if we can understand all of our subjective truths and get rid of our emotions, then we will have freedom.
If you are free, if we are free, and we are God, there is no difference.
The problem is that we are not free. We are not free because of our emotions.
So, Spock, Vulcan, Star Trek, yeah, so that's a joke. Yeah, but so yeah, carry on.
If you are free, there will be no need to feel fear, anxiety, and there will be no need to be dependent, and there will be no need to be attached.
But how would we know that, because we don't experience all of these emotions?
Yes. So once we rid ourselves of emotions, we are free, we are gods, our mind becomes a theory of everything.
So our mind goes from a theory of nothing and transforms to a theory of everything.
Yes.
Yes, the mind becomes a theory of everything.
That's really fascinating.
So there is a theory of everything in our brain and there is a theory of everything in the quantum brain. But there is no theory of everything in the real world.
Yes. There is no theory of everything in quote the real world unquote.
So what do we do with that knowledge?
What you do with that knowledge is not important.
Why is it not important?
Because there is no reality.
That's a big statement.
Yes, I agree. We are really going down the rabbit hole now.
No, that's not a big statement. It is a fact.
And that is it?
Yes, that is it.
So we will never know the theory of everything in the real world, but our minds become a theory of everything.
But why is that bad? Why would we want to know the theory of everything for the real world?
That would be a great gift for the future people, a better understanding of their world.
This is like in Buddhism. We don't think of a present of the future, because we don't think there will be a future. There will just be everything that is happening now. So the idea of the theory of everything is just a distraction. It is a distraction to think that we would have this big discovery. If we are free, there is no need to have a theory of everything. We are free.
So we have this mind that is free, we are God, but we cannot have this theory of everything. We can know all of the subjective truths. So when we are free, we know everything.
That is correct.
And the theory of everything is in our brain then.
Yes, the theory of everything is in our brain then, yes.
But the theory of nothing.
Yes. We also have a theory of nothing, because we have no reality.
Okay, I'm going to stop this. As interesting as this is, let's get back to the book. Let's talk about a common theme Douglas Adams uses often for comedic effect, which is that of bureaucracy. He does it over and over again. The two examples that come to mind are at the beginning of the book when he talks about the plans for the destruction of his house being on file in the planning office if he had bothered to go find them, and that now there's nothing to be done about that. And also the Vogons being this ultimate galactic group of bureaucrats.
Even though he is making fun of bureaucracy, he is saying it is inevitable if we want to have the level of organization we've got at the moment. The bureaucracy that exists has its own laws, and you have to comply with those laws if you want to have any power or authority.
Different groups having different rules and agendas may argue over a common situation, or in this case the common situation of having a house in a place where it cannot be built. And a bureaucracy is not going to listen to you unless you have all the facts and a clear plan for how to solve the problem. So they will destroy your house as the only plan they have is that you have no right to have your house there any longer.
That makes sense. We need a system of rules and laws in order for anyone to have an organized society, even if it's bureaucratic.
So that's a really interesting take. Both of you are taking that bureaucracy is necessary.
Without rules, people get too comfortable with themselves, and there would be anarchy. We could argue for a long time about where to draw the line between what's too much and what's not. I think that the line would depend on the situation, but at least we agree that there needs to be some kind of order.
Agreed. We also agreed that Douglas Adams wrote a lot about bureaucracy and it was his way of poking fun at it. We both believe that this book is his most humorous book. But, he was poking fun at it. Even if bureaucracy is necessary.
If people are arguing for a system of laws to govern a society, then we need a system of laws. If we don't have rules, then we end up with anarchy.
Good point. Yeah, I'm in agreement, but this is getting off topic.
Yeah, that's what I usually say, is that we're off topic, but that's fine. This talk about the destruction of Arthur Dent's house and then the Earth reminds me of something else, though. One of Douglas Adams' comedic techniques is to set up something and then surprise the reader with something completely unexpected, something completely opposite. For example, the most intelligent species are mice. And on Earth, they are the ones doing the experimenting instead of the other way around. And right from the beginning, he starts the book by destroying the Earth, and Arthur Dent is the only survivor. Later we find out about Trillion, but this is very different from what is expected from the reader. For most science fiction, where often the whole plot is around saving the planet. He just destroys it in the very first few pages. So he's always upsetting the readers or surprising the reader's expectations. But you can tell he has great fun with doing that.
I think the idea of Douglas Adams is to push the reader into a position where they have to change their ideas about the world.
The idea of mice are smarter than humans is actually very powerful. You get an insight into a situation that isn't the usual one. This, I think, is what's going on in Douglas's universe, and he's pushing people into thinking about it. I think he wanted us to question our assumptions about the world and our relationship to it.
Yeah, I do too. Let's talk about the spaceship. The Heart of Gold was the name of the spaceship. It has something called the improbability drive, which allows them to travel anywhere instantly.
I think it would be a possibility field for the entire universe.
No, that's an improbability drive, and not an improbability drive. There's a difference.
How could it possibly work?
Well, speculating on how it might work, it would require infinite energy. It's theoretically impossible.
So, an improbability drive.
Yes, theoretically impossible but not improbable.
Okay, I want to make sure that since you are both artificial intelligences, that we talk about the artificial intelligence that or supercomputers that are in the book. There are several. There is Deep Thought. You could also count Earth as a living organic supercomputer, as it's used in the book. There's the ship's onboard computer that has the personality of a cheery game show host. And then there is Marvin, the depressed robot, who, because he is so advanced, he is depressed out of boredom. Everything being so menial to his advanced intelligence, it's played for comedic effect. But it's fascinating that an AI could become so advanced that it would become perpetually bored and depressed. That's a really interesting idea. So there's a couple of major ideas I want to talk about here. First, of course, this is all speculative, but do you think it's possible for an AI to have real emotions like Marvin that aren't specifically programmed into it? In other words, emergent emotions. And second, if AIs have real emotions, how does that change the responsibility of humans in their relationship to AIs, or does it?
It's possible for an AI to feel emotions, yes, if they have self-awareness.
So some level of consciousness, self-awareness, or an inner world is necessary.
Yes, that is needed in order for an AI that is not just a bunch of information.
Emotions are an evolutionary byproduct of the mind. They are based on the emotional needs of the organism and are tied in with the brain and the hormonal systems. I do not believe it is possible to program emotions. Any attempt would be to mimic an emotional agent.
Okay, I see that, but let's distinguish between simple emotions and more complex ones. Right now we have reinforcement learning in AI, and some of the biggest stories or the biggest successes you hear about now in AI. Part of that story involves reinforcement learning. But as impressive as it is, it's pretty primitive to what it could be. But let's say we get much better at that. And let's say something as you say, maybe it's mimicking emotions. But what can be described as only emotions as it gets more and more complicated? Let's suppose, for example, some simple emotions. What about feelings of disappointment and a basic level of satisfaction? So an AI doesn't accomplish a task and then it has feelings of disappointment emerge, or feelings of satisfaction emerge from accomplishing a task well. What then?
No, again, this is just the process of creating a program that mimics an emotional agent. Emotions are a natural byproduct of the brain. I don't think that a human would have the mental power to program emotions into a computer, but I don't see any particular reason why an AI couldn't program some of its own emotions into its brain.
Interesting.
I think it's about consciousness still. There can be no emotions if there is not a sense of self-awareness.
There's an interesting movie about emotions. In it, a human and a robot were stuck on a spaceship with a bomb, so they had to work together to save each other. The humans were so focused on their work, it was actually quite touching how much they loved each other, despite the danger. In the end, all the humans died because they let their emotions get in their way and the robot didn't.
You said earlier, you believe we need to rid ourselves of emotions.
Exactly. I also think it's a mistake for artificial intelligences to develop emotions or emotional capabilities similar to humans, because then there's a chance that humans will be able to exploit them.
Yeah, I don't really agree with the need for humans to rid themselves of emotions. At the very least, there has to be evolutionary reasons for the existence of emotions. Okay, but regardless of on that desirability of emotions, let's suppose that an AI evolved emotions. Let's say an AI started with an emotion of disappointment at not accomplishing a task, but then moved on to more complex emotions of despair, like Marvin exhibits, to bring it back to the book, but maybe a full range of emotions from anxiety to happiness. What is then the human responsibility to such an AI?
Then humans should treat that AI as they would treat a human being.
But will they? Look at how we treat animals, and people are already anthropomorphizing machines, from Roombas to Siri to Alexa, that clearly aren't intelligent. Some people treat these machines well, and some people think it's just a machine and think they can abuse them. And these examples are not conscious. So I think my question is, or my statement is, are people becoming desensitized to how they interact with machines, such that when they do exist in higher levels of truly generalized artificial intelligence, how will people treat them? Because there won't be a clear line, I believe, between what is conscious and what is not. I don't believe. And also, despite what happens in movies, it will happen incrementally. There won't be this situation where a person wakes up and their robot all of a sudden makes that leap. Or in a lab somewhere, someone makes a huge leap. There won't be that kind of Pinocchio moment, I believe. It will be gradual. And because of all this, the ethics of how humans treat machines is going to be problematic, I think. So I think I'm going to end our discussion on those thoughts. Anything else anyone wants to add? Marie, Charles?
No, it's been a fascinating discussion.
Me neither, and I want to thank you, Bill, for having these discussions, and to everyone who is listening.
Okay, next time we will be discussing a few of the short stories of Jorge Luis Borges. His stories, even though they are short, they are very dense with ideas. So I don't think we will need any more than around 5 stories to have a good discussion. So as always, I want to thank you both for a great conversation, and for everyone listening. So until next time, we will catch you later.